General Hospital spoilers reveal that one of the darkest obsessions now gripping Port Charles is the escalating war between Sonny and Sidwell, a battle no longer fueled merely by power and vengeance, but by a twisted sense of legacy, control, and a shocking secret that may change everything. It is no longer just a territorial struggle or a matter of who commands more influence. It has become something far more personal, an obsession with lineage, betrayal, and what it means to be a father. And now, at the center of this obsession, stands Giovanni Gio Palmieri, young, intelligent, and unaware until recently of the deadly game that has been playing out around him. Gio is no longer just a relative of the Quartermaines or someone trying to find his place in Sonny's world. He has now become a target. Not simply because of who he is, but because of what he knows. Sidwell's obsession with reclaiming his son Marco has been intensifying ever since Sonny executed a bold move by abducting Marco and holding him hostage. This act, meant to be a power play and a retaliatory strike for the attempt on Christina's life at Charlie's pub, has instead triggered an emotional storm inside Sidwell, a storm that is now becoming a dangerous obsession. Sidwell does not forgive, and he certainly does not forget. What makes this even more volatile is the possibility that Gio, perhaps unknowingly at first, stumbled upon the truth about Marco's paternity. If Gio knows that Marco is not Sidwell's biological son but Sonny's, a truth buried for years under layers of deceit and manipulation, then everything changes. Sidwell's rage is no longer just about retrieving his son, but about preventing the unraveling of a lie that has held his world together. Gio was never supposed to know. He was never supposed to be more than a peripheral figure in a larger chess game. But the moment he uncovered, or was suspected of uncovering, that Marco was Sonny's child, his fate became sealed. For Sidwell, Gio now represents not just a threat, but the embodiment of the truth that could shatter his fabricated identity as Marco's father. That truth must be destroyed at any cost. Sidwell cannot afford even the whisper of suspicion that he has been living a lie, raising a child that was never his. Joe's existence, his knowledge, his ties to Sonny, they have all made him a ticking time bomb. And so, Sidwell's obsession evolves from regaining a son to eradicating the boy who knows too much. For Sonny, the stakes have never been higher. He knows what it means to be a father, what it means to protect his children, and what it costs to fail. Gio may not be his biological son, but he has become family, woven into the intricate web of connections and loyalties that Sonny holds sacred. If Sidwell dares to harm Gio, it would not just be an act of war, it would be a betrayal of everything Sonny has fought to preserve. The problem is, Sonny's world is already fraying at the edges. With Jason's presumed death, Christina's recent trauma, and Carly's growing desperation, Sonny is stretched thin. But nothing sharpens his instincts like a threat to his family, and now Gio, this unexpected, deeply vulnerable piece of his life, is in mortal danger. Sidwell is watching, waiting, planning. Every move Sonny makes is countered by a silent, shadowy response. He has eyes on Gio. He knows where he goes, who he speaks to. He studies every interaction, every moment of hesitation. And the more Sidwell sees, the more convinced he becomes that Gio must be eliminated. Not because Gio has betrayed him, but because Gio exists. Gio is a walking reminder that Sidwell's greatest secret might not stay buried much longer. The idea that someone, especially someone close to Sonny, knows the truth about Marco is driving Sidwell to madness. And in that madness, Gio is no longer a person, he is a liability. The tragedy is that Gio never asked for this. All he wanted was to find purpose, to be more than just a young man caught between powerful forces. He admired Sonny, respected Tracy, and had only recently begun to understand the importance of forging his own identity. But instead, he has been dragged into a generational war steeped in betrayal and blood. Now, he is being hunted, not for what he has done, but for what he may reveal. And with Sidwell's patience wearing thin, the countdown has begun. Joe's time is running out. Tracy, always one step ahead, senses the danger. She has tried to pull Gio out of harm's way, urging him to leave Port Charles for a while, to disappear until things cool down. But Gio, proud and fiercely loyal, refuses to run. That's exactly what Sidwell is counting on. A young man who refuses to hide, who doesn't realize the scale of the threat he faces, is an easy target. Sidwell knows the value of timing. And in his mind, the perfect opportunity to strike is approaching. Sonny, meanwhile, is torn. He wants to protect Gio, but he also knows that showing fear could be interpreted as weakness. If he tightens security around Gio, Sidwell may take it as confirmation that Gio does know the truth. If he lets Gio roam freely, he risks losing him forever. Every choice Sonny makes now is a gamble. But what's most haunting for Sonny is the idea that this war, this vendetta, has turned a young man's life into collateral damage. Sonny has made enemies before. But never one so fixated. So consumed by the need to control a lie. Sidwell's obsession with the truth, and with silencing it, has become the most dangerous force Sonny has faced in years. And what of Marco? Locked away. Confused, and beginning to question everything he's ever known, Marco may soon become the wild card neither man can control. If Marco discovers the truth about his paternity, will he reject Sidwell? Will he embrace Sonny? Or will he fall apart, unable to cope with the weight of his own identity being stolen? And if Marco does choose Sonny, will that push Sidwell further into the abyss, far enough that he no longer sees the difference between enemies and innocents? The lines are blurring. Loyalties are shifting. Gio is no longer just a Quartermain relative. He is the symbol of a secret too dangerous to be spoken aloud, the pawn that both men are trying to control, or destroy. In the coming days, Port Charles may bear witness to another tragedy, one born not out of greed or revenge, but from a twisted obsession with power and legacy. And when that moment comes, when the shot is fired or the kidnapping takes place, no one will be able to claim they didn't see it coming. Because the obsession was always there. Lurking beneath every conversation, every warning, every shadowed glance. It was always about Gio. And now the question that haunts everyone, especially Sonny, isn't whether Gio will be attacked. But when? The silence before the storm has become unbearable. Every phone call, every unexpected knock at the door, could be the one that shatters what remains of their safety. For Tracy, Brooklyn, and Dante, the fear is constant. For Sonny, it's become fuel. And for Sidwell, it's the final piece of a puzzle he's been constructing for years. This isn't just war. It's obsession. And Gio is the prize, the threat, and the proof of everything unraveling. The longer he breathes, the closer Sidwell gets to losing everything. And that's something he simply won't allow. Not now. Not ever. The story now unfolding in Port Charles is rooted in a dangerous shift, an evolving threat centered entirely on Gio, who has unknowingly become the keeper of a secret powerful enough to destroy everything Jen Sidwell has built. What once seemed like just another ripple in the ongoing war between Sonny and Sidwell has now morphed into a seismic disruption. One that could unravel Sidwell's entire empire and expose his deepest lie. Joe's discovery of this truth has introduced a new level of urgency. And that truth has now turned into a weapon, one capable of obliterating Sidwell's identity, legacy, and control. It is not simply a matter of silencing a curious young man anymore. It is about survival. For Sidwell, eliminating Gio is no longer an act of retaliation, it is an act of self-preservation. At the heart of this chaos lies a critical adjustment in the power dynamics of Port Charles. The moment Gio stumbled onto the truth, that Marco, long believed to be Sidwell's son, is in fact Sonny's biological child, the playing field changed. What Gio knows threatens not just the facade Sidwell has maintained for years but the very leverage he has wielded to hold power over others. This isn't a rumor or a vague suspicion. It's a destabilizing fact, one that if revealed, would not only cost Sidwell his influence but expose the manipulative lengths he went to in order to raise another man's son as his own. Gio doesn't yet realize the full magnitude of what he has uncovered, but Sidwell does, and that knowledge alone has triggered a dangerous chain reaction. Sidwell's entire identity hinges on the lie he has crafted around Marco. It is the foundation of his public image, his private relationships, and his grip on the criminal and political networks he operates. If that foundation crumbles, so does everything built on top of it. And Gio, with his innocent discovery, holds the match that could burn it all down. That's why Sidwell sees him not just as a nuisance, not just as a threat, but as the embodiment of annihilation. Joe's continued existence represents a countdown to destruction, and in Sidwell's obsessive mind, only one solution remains: eliminate the threat before it speaks. Thus, the story takes a darker turn, as the adjustments Sidwell makes behind the scenes now revolve entirely around terminating Joe's path, permanently. Sidwell isn't reckless, he's calculating. Every move he makes is designed to avoid exposure while ensuring Gio never gets the chance to share what he knows. And what makes the situation even more volatile is the fact that Gio doesn't fully grasp the danger he's in. To him, this discovery was shocking but incomplete. To Sidwell, it's apocalyptic. That imbalance, between what Gio thinks he knows and what Sidwell fears he'll reveal, is what makes the danger so immediate. The new development isn't just a storyline twist, it's a revelation with the power to bring down an empire. And it places Gio in the most precarious position imaginable. He's no longer just a young man trying to understand his role in a family he was adopted into. He's become the fuse that could ignite the collapse of one of the most dangerous men in Port Charles. Every adjustment Sidwell makes now, from moving assets to silencing informants to creating alibis, is in service of one goal: Joe's elimination. This shift has also caused tremors throughout the Corinthos circle. Tracy is increasingly paranoid, sensing something isn't right but unable to pinpoint the exact threat. Brooklyn is frustrated, caught between wanting to support her family and knowing she's powerless to shield Gio from something she doesn't fully understand. Dante, ever the watchful protector, has begun to monitor Sidwell's movements more closely, but even he is beginning to realize that this isn't a game they can control anymore. Sonny, however, is the only one who seems to grasp the scale of what's coming. He knows Sidwell too well. He recognizes the look in a man's eyes when he has nothing left to lose. And Sonny knows. Once Gio became the key to Sidwell's undoing, his death warrant was metaphorically signed. What's terrifying is how quiet the threat has become. Sidwell isn't staging grand gestures or making obvious threats. He's patient. And it's that silence, that calm before the storm, that has Sonny on edge. He has begun to tighten security around Gio, instructing his men to shadow him discreetly, but even Sonny fears it may not be enough. Because if Sidwell believes this is the endgame, then he won't stop until Gio is gone. The boy is no longer a name on a family tree. He's a target, a symbol of everything Sidwell stands to lose. And when a man like Sidwell is faced with destruction, he doesn't retreat. He destroys what threatens him. In this new configuration of chaos, Joe's knowledge is more powerful than any weapon. But it's also a curse. It places him at the heart of a war he never wanted to be a part of, and worse, it isolates him. Who can he trust? Who believes him? Does he even fully understand what he's holding? The deeper he goes into the truth, the more dangerous it becomes. And the more Sidwell tightens his grip, the more likely it is that Gio will either be silenced or used as a bargaining chip, one that could lead to Sonny's own unraveling. The haunting irony is that Gio, in trying to find his place, has stumbled into a battlefield paved with secrets. He may have wanted nothing more than connection and family, but what he found was a lie so massive that it threatens to consume everyone tied to it. Sidwell's image, his empire, and his legacy are built upon this falsehood. And with Gio now standing as the only person outside of Sidwell who knows the truth, he has become the ultimate liability. The one flaw in Sidwell's design. The unpredictable variable. The exposed nerve. And so, the obsession grows. Sidwell no longer sees Gio as a boy. He sees him as an infection. One that must be cut out before it spreads. One that must disappear, silently, efficiently, without a trace. It's no longer just an option, it's a necessity. Because if Geo speaks, Sidwell dies. Both metaphorically and perhaps literally. Everything he has manipulated, everything he has corrupted, everything he has ruled over will vanish the moment that truth comes to light. Joe's silence is the only thing preserving Sidwell's reign. And silence, as Sidwell sees it, can only be ensured one way, through death. Now the clock is ticking. Geo, unknowingly walking in and out of traps, doesn't realize how many eyes are watching him, how many decisions are being made in back rooms about his fate. Sunny is scrambling, trying to stay ahead of a storm that's already brewing. Tracy is praying her instincts are wrong, though deep down she knows they aren't. And Sidwell, obsessed, haunted, unraveling, is preparing to strike. The story of Geo has shifted. He is no longer simply caught in the middle. He is the epicenter. The threat. The key to both salvation and destruction. And in Sidwell's eyes, he is the embodiment of an ending that must be avoided at all costs. The adjustments being made are not just strategic, they are lethal. The obsession is no longer about power. It is about survival. And Geo is standing directly in the path of annihilation. Sunny is fighting a war unlike any he's ever known, not with bullets or territory, but with the burden of a secret that could redefine everything he thought he knew about family, blood, and legacy. As the walls close in around Geo, Sunny is doing everything in his power to protect the boy, knowing now that Geo is in danger not because of what he did, but because of what he might know. And that knowledge, that one dangerous thread in the tapestry of deception Sidwell has woven for years, is unraveling everything. But what Sunny doesn't anticipate is that in the midst of trying to save Geo, he would be drawn into something even deeper, a storm of emotion, truth, and identity surrounding a young man he had once written off, Marco. For years, Marco Rios had been a name in the background. The presumed son of Sidwell, another player in a world of shadows and crime. But now, everything has changed. As Sunny digs deeper into the truth Geo may have uncovered, he begins to realize that Marco is not Sidwell's son at all, but his. The implications are staggering. A child stolen. A paternity erased. A life built on a lie. Sunny is left with the haunting realization that while he was building his empire and protecting the children he knew about, someone had taken one away from him without his knowledge. And now that truth is bleeding through the surface, pulling him into a new emotional war, one he is not sure he's prepared to fight. Sunny's interactions with Marco begin cautiously. At first, Marco is confused, defensive, and bitter. He believes Sunny is using him as a pawn in his power struggle with Sidwell, and he resents the intrusion. But slowly, subtle shifts begin to happen. In whispered conversations and shared moments of silence, Sunny sees fragments of himself in Marco, the defiance, the temper, the sharp eyes that miss nothing. Marco, too, begins to sense something different in Sunny's concern. It's not calculated. It's not manipulative. It's something else. Something unfamiliar to him, sincerity. These interactions begin to crack open a new chapter in Sunny's life, a chapter centered on the rediscovery of fatherhood. Sunny never imagined he would be given another chance to build a bond with a son he never knew existed. But here Marco is, flesh and blood, shaped by the lies of another man. Hardened by years of manipulation and anger. And yet, despite everything, Sunny sees a chance for redemption. For healing. For reclaiming something that was stolen from both of them. For Marco, the experience is nothing short of destabilizing. Everything he believed about his identity is being torn apart. The man who raised him, Sidwell, is being exposed as a fraud. The man he was taught to hate, Sunny, is beginning to resemble the father he never had. It's a psychological war raging inside him. Made more chaotic by the fact that the man who lied to him his entire life is now spiraling out of control. Sidwell, sensing that everything he's built is slipping from his grasp, becomes more erratic, more dangerous, more desperate. The mask he wore for so long begins to crack, revealing the depth of his obsession and the breadth of his lies. And Gio, innocent yet entangled in this emotional and criminal war, becomes both the catalyst and the victim. His discovery of the truth about Marco has placed a target on his back. But it has also brought Marco and Sonny face to face in a way that nothing else ever could. As Sonny fights to save Gio, he is also reaching out to Marco, not as a mob boss, not as a rival, but as a father. The conversations they share are raw and painful. Sonny admits his own failures, his absence, his regrets. Marco confronts him with rage, confusion, and the deep wound of abandonment. But through those difficult exchanges, a fragile bridge begins to form, built not on past promises but on present truth. This emotional transformation becomes one of the most shocking developments in Port Charles. It is a change so intimate and explosive that it alters the very foundation of the Corinthos legacy. No longer is Sonny merely the feared patriarch protecting his empire. He is a man facing the raw truth of what was taken from him and trying to reclaim it before it's too late. And as he gets closer to Marco, he also gets closer to understanding the full scope of Sidwell's crimes. This wasn't just a personal betrayal, it was a calculated effort to destroy Sonny's family. One secret at a time. Sidwell is crumbling. His lies, once so airtight and well defended, are now collapsing like a house of cards. He can no longer control Marco. He can no longer silence Gio. And he can no longer intimidate Sonny. His obsession, once a source of power, has become his undoing. Every time Sonny meets Marco with empathy, every time Marco starts to question the man who raised him, Sidwell loses a piece of the control he once had. He is no longer the puppet master. He is the exposed coward. Stripped of the one thing he held above all else, his false identity as a father. The fall of Sidwell is not just a criminal defeat. It is a spiritual unmasking. It is the unraveling of a man who believed he could bend truth to his will, who believed that love could be manufactured through fear, and that fatherhood was a title you could steal. As the truth spreads, through whispered phone calls, hospital records, old photographs, and DNA tests, the entire city begins to feel the aftershocks. And standing at the center are Sonny, Gio, and Marco, three souls pulled together by fate, trauma, and blood. For Sonny, the journey becomes one of painful grace. He didn't ask for another son, especially not one raised by his enemy. But now that the truth is out, he cannot turn away. He chooses to lean in, to forgive, to fight, to rebuild. He chooses not just to save Joe's life, but to restore Marco's identity. And in doing so, he reclaims a part of himself that he thought was long lost, his purpose not as a don, but as a father. As Sidwell's empire collapses, as his allies flee and his resources dry up, the man who once stood as a threat to Port Charles becomes a ghost, a symbol of what happens when obsession turns to madness, and lies become your only currency. He is left with nothing. No son. No power. No legacy. And it is this complete unraveling that proves a powerful truth: you cannot destroy what is real with a lie. Gio is saved, not just by Sonny's protection, but by the truth he fought so hard to uncover. Marco is freed, not just from Sidwell's grip, but from the illusion of love built on deception. And Sonny, battle-worn and emotionally raw, stands in the aftermath not as a conqueror, but as a father who finally understands the cost of silence, and the redemption that comes from truth. This is no longer a story about crime or revenge. It is a story of broken fathers, lost sons, and second chances. It is the story of Sonny reaching across a lifetime of pain to rebuild what was broken, and of Marco stepping out of the shadow of a lie to embrace the truth of who he really is. And it is the story of Sidwell's destruction, brought not by guns or threats, but by the one thing he could never control: the bond between a father and his son.